Hello friends. In this video we will talk about the Indian nuclear policy, its features and its tenets and what are its critical components and critical views on it in the favor or against it. So a nuclear policy is the policy posture of any country or a nation about how to use its weapons or how to deploy its weapons, typically the nuclear weapons, during war and during peacetime. So, nuclear policy includes both the uses during the war and during the peacetime. So, whenever we talk about the nuclear policy, so first word which comes into our mind is no first use, NFU, or credible minimum deterrence, CMD, or no use against non-nuclear state. So below we will discuss about each of these words and the components of the nuclear policy, which India's nuclear policy. So first is no first use. So no first use means India will not use its nuclear weapon on the first instance. So one thing is that India will not use it, and no use against non-nuclear weapon state. So it says that India will first observe when it will be attacked. It will first observe the nuclear attack on it and then respond. Now, when India will respond, India says it will respond with massive retaliation. Means there will be a unacceptable damage will be done on whichever country will attack India first. And India also clarified that India can also use nuclear weapons against weapons of mass destruction, which are of nature like biological weapons or chemical weapons, which says that though India overall have no first use, but India will use only when it will be attacked, and when it will be attacked either by nuclear weapons or biological weapons or by chemical weapons, whichever of its kind. So here there is a diversity of which attack by weapons of mass destruction will be done on India. So the second point, which is very important, is credible minimum deterrence. Credible minimum deterrence says that how much nuclear weapon stockpile will India attain, like how many weapons will India acquire. So Indian nuclear policy says that India will acquire sufficient to deter their adversaries. So one thing it says that India will work on survival instinct. Second, it will do means stockpile minimum number of nuclear weapons, but not so minimum, but credible means that they are sufficient to create a deterrence on the enemies or adversaries or the potential enemies or adversaries. So basically it says that the amount which is sufficient enough to create the deterrence, because the main aim of nuclear weapons is not to be used in wartime but to create a deterrence, and credible minimum deterrence are the stockpiles which are sufficient to produce that effect or a psychological state in adversaries. The third point is that civilian control and robust command structure. It says that the power to deploy or not to deploy the nuclear weapons are in the hands of civilians, basically civilian government. So the nuclear command authority, which is a body, nuclear command authority is a body which is headed by the prime minister, is having control and command powers. So it is not in the hands of armed forces or army, which is military. Rather, Indian nuclear weapons will be controlled by this civilian government. The fourth is that though India have nuclear weapons, but India is committed for global disarmament. but India put conditions like it should be universal, like there should be not have and have not, like nuclear haves P5 and have nots other who haven't developed, have not developed by 1967, like NPT treaty says that whoever have developed before this date are P5 or nuclear weapon state, and whoever have done this later will be non-nuclear weapon state. So this creates a arbitrary date. This discriminate because mostly the third world was got independence by 1950s 1960s. So mostly the nuclear weapon states will be developed, so inherently it creates a haves and have not. But India says it is committed to the global disarmament, which is universal and non-discriminatory. So another point is that India has not signed NPT and CTBT, Non-Proliferation Treaty and Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty. Why it haven't signed? It gives the reasoning that it is discriminatory in nature, and India has on its own imposed upon itself the voluntarily moratorium on it. So that's the point here. Next is nuclear triad. India, because India developed nuclear triad due to because India works on uh, credible minimum deterrence. So it will have minimum number of weapons, but it is massive retaliation. So massive retaliation says that we have to first absorb the one attack by adversary, so we will respond by massive retaliation. So for it to be effective, India needs nuclear triad. So nuclear triad is a state when a country or a nuclear weapon state achieve when they can fire from air, water and land. So in INS Arihant and Agni 5, which is intercontinental ballistic missiles, gives us the power and gives us the position of nuclear triad. The last point is that self strategic restraint and flexibility, like India exercise strategic restraint and flexibility. So basically it says that when India is attacked by non-nuclear weapons, it will not directly attack by nuclear weapons, rather it will go by strategic restraint. But later, when if and when India will be attacked by weapons of mass destructions like biological, chemical or nuclear or whatsoever which may emerge or come under the domain of weapons of mass destructions, so India will respond with flexibility. So these all are like credible minimum deterrence, no first use, no use against non-nuclear state, nuclear deterrence against chemical and biological weapons, massive retaliation, and civilian command and control. So all these are facets and components of Indian nuclear policy. So with this portion, we came to know what is basically nuclear policy about and what are its key components. In next, we will study upon each for and against, like no first use, for and against. So we will develop a critical understanding on the whole policy and the topic on this. Thank you very much.